Okay, hi Miss Moon, this is my test correction vlog number 2. And the first question that I missed was question number 2, asking which of the following are depicted as primary consumers in the figure. And the correct answer is deer mice and eastern chipmunks, because these are the consumers that consume the plants that are grown. They consume the producers, and they can be seen as the first species to walk around and stuff and feed on other living organisms. Okay, the next question that I missed was question number 3, asking which of the following are depicted in the figure as feeding at multiple trophic levels. The correct answer is cedar woodwinds, because they have all of the arrows pointing towards them, showing that they eat from many trophic levels and not just one, and that they can eat more than just one species or trophic level, so they can eat at all the different rates and all the different food that is available. Okay, so the next one that I missed is it states the desert and tundra both have relatively low precipitation. So the desert is going to have relatively low precipitation because of where it is located. It's sandy. All of the species that live there don't require a lot of water, and it's very dry. And with the tundra, the permafrost doesn't allow plants to grow very deep into the ground, so there cannot be many big species or plants or trees that grow there. So there's no need for a lot of precipitation. That is why the tundra does not have a lot of precipitation. So the next question I missed was the climate diagram depicts a typical boreal forest diagram. And the reason this is because the temperatures appear to be very cold throughout the entire year, and there's still some in temperate deciduous forest, there's a lot of rain spread out throughout the year, and in the taiga or boreal forest there's a little bit less rain throughout the entire year, but the rain is still present. So this is why it is a boreal forest. Okay, so the next question on this states, because of the rain shadow effect, and then the correct answer is a dry region occurs on the downward side of the mountain. And the reason that there's a dry section on the other side of the mountain is because the prevailing winds lose their moisture on the windward side of the mountain. So when they come to the other side when the clouds go to the other side of the mountain, they have already lost all their moisture. So that's the reason why nothing falls out of them, and the other side of the mountain is really dry. So the next one I missed was number 11, asking to match the definition with the correct term. And it states many interacting species that live in the same area are a community, and this is because a community is many different species interacting with one another, not just one species, because that would be a population. And if all of the species are interacting with each other, they can create a healthy ecosystem for the environment. So this is why it is a community instead of any of the rest. So 15 is the next one that I missed. It says a coyote can alter its diet to match seasonal abundance of plants, fruits, or small animals, and therefore would be considered a generalist because it doesn't just rely or depend on the resources that are available. It can adapt to whatever is around, causing it to be a generalist and be able to use all the resources that are around and not just using what they have to use. The next one I missed was which of the following scenarios best describes the density dependent factor limiting population growth? And the answer is a particularly dry summer shrinks and dries up many pond in Canada, and increased aggression and competition for limited nest sites among female ducks. And the reason this is a density-dependent factor is because all of the lakes were dried up, which affects the rest of the animals, and the reason the animals become more aggressive is because all of the lakes were dried up, so they have to all fight for the resources, which is why it would be a limiting population factor, because there's not enough resources for everybody to live there, which limits the growth. Okay, so the next one is, which of the following is likely to be a direct or indirect effect of removing top predators from the ecosystem? And the correct answer is a decrease in ground level vegetation such as tree saplings. And this is an independent effect because the top predators from the ecosystem had nothing to do with it. If they were removed, there would actually be a lot more. But another factor must have been taking place for the ground level saplings to disappear and not have as many anymore. So it is an independent factor. Okay, so the next one I missed is number 19. It states that global warming has been hypothesized to cause many plants to flower early. If bees search for food earlier in response to this would represent coevolution within the community. And the reason it is coevolution is because the bees had to adapt to what the plants were reproducing at. So they were reproducing at a different time, so the bees had to reproduce had to go pollinate the plants at a different time. That's why it's coevolution, because they had to work together. And it affected both of them rather than just one of them. Okay, so the next one I missed is number 22, and it states fish that eat zooplankton are secondary consumers. And the reason they're secondary consumers is because the zooplankton are the primary consumers that feed off of the herbivores that are on the very bottom of the trophic levels. So the zooplankton feed off of them, and they are the primary consumers, which makes the fish the secondary consumers because they consume the zooplankton. Okay, so the next one on this is, a species has evolved an asexual mode of reproduction by having offspring develop from unfertilized eggs. Which of the following will be true of the species' response to natural selection? The answer is there will be less genetic variation from breed combination and a risk of not adapting quickly to environmental change. And the reason it is this answer is because they will develop the traits of whatever parent gave birth to them, because they did not have to go through the breeding process with another species of their type. They just had their own. So the risk that they will have is they will not have the adaptations to the environment as if they were bred normally. The next question talks about it says, you are an ecologist researching divergent evolution at the Galapagos Islands. Which of the following might you expect to be studying? And the correct answer is the process of which various species of finches on the islands diverge from a common ancestor. And the reason it is this because on the Galapagos Islands they have many different variations of the species, and so you might want to look at how they diverged into very different species, but they have a common ancestor. So that's why you might want to study the various species. Okay, so the next one is, which of the following pairs list an R-selected organism followed by a K-selected organism? And the R-selected organism is a grasshopper because there's a lot of offspring. A lot of them die in the beginning of their lives. Few make it to like older adulthood, and there's a low probability of surviving. And the K-selected organisms are whales because they are the dominant creatures in the sea, so they have few offspring, but a lot of them live to old ages, and there's a high survival rate for most of them. Okay, the next question says, dog breeds are a classic example of artificial selection. Which of the following is another example of artificial selection? And the answer is breeding wild cabbage to create broccoli and cauliflower. And the reason it is this is because you have to, it takes human interaction to make this process happen. It would not just happen in the environment by itself, so that's why it is artificial selection. The next question is number 44. It says, some water, a small amount of soil, a few green aquatic plants, and a fish were placed in a large bottle. Sounds like Enrico columns. The bottle was sealed to prevent the exchange of gases and other materials between its contents and the outside. The bottle was placed in a window to receive light during the daytime. Is carbon dioxide produced by these plants? And the correct answer is yes. It is produced all the time as a result of cellular respiration, and in cellular respiration, carbon dioxide is released. So that's why the carbon dioxide is produced. The next question is, the rate of growth of a natural population is calculated by subtracting death rate from birth rate, and the reason I got this wrong is because I forgot the equation and I thought it was limited by the carrying capacity of an ecosystem, but the reason it is subtracting death rate from birth rate is because you can get accurate data or a graph that shows the steady rate or the exponential or logistic rate of how the population is growing within the environment. The next question is, zooplankton populations in Lake Erie and the Hudson River had declined by up to 70% or more since the arrival of the zebra mussel, because zebra mussels feed on small zooplankton and on the phytoplankton that the zooplankton needs as a food source. The reason the zooplankton has gone down is because the zebra mussels have fed off of it, and the phytoplankton is now growing like crazy because there's no zooplankton to stop it. So the zebra mussels have really posed a serious issue for the lake and the river. Okay, so the next question on this states, a species realized niche is cannot be larger than the fundamental niche, and because this is because the realized niche is more like the realistic kind of niche. So the fundamental niche is just like the straight math, but the realized niche takes everything else into account. So this is why it cannot be larger than the fundamental niche, because the fundamental niche is kind of like a fake niche. It's like the niche that everybody wants, and but really doesn't exist anywhere. Okay, so the next question is, a trophic cascade is the effect of the loss of top consumers on the abundance of lower consumers and producers. And this is because if all of the top consumers are gone, there will be an abundance of lower consumers and producers, because there are no top producers to limit them, so they will thrive to an unhealthy amount for the ecosystem and environment.